Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
Not too bad. My back's been out, but it's starting to get better. So,
Well, good that it's starting to get better.
Yeah, it's getting there. We're getting there. I hate getting older.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. How about you? How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I'm not old at all.
Oh.
For anybody listening, I'm older than Jeff.
Yeah.
Just by a little bit, but
Like a year?
year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
So I can't remember if I mentioned it before or not, but my wife is out of town at the moment. And I have this weird little tradition that I follow, and I don't really know why. But whenever she goes out of town, I make myself an expensive fancy dinner every time. I always I get myself a huge steak, and then I go all out making myself super fancy food. Not that I can't do it when she's here.
Right.
I can do it anytime I want to. I could do it for her as well, or I could just do it for myself. That doesn't matter. But I don't know. I think it was just when she went out of town a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, I'm going to buy myself an expensive steak, and I'm going to make myself an expensive steak. And then every time she goes out of town, I've done it again.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I had a similar thing with Skylar, because she would spend Saturdays at her friend's house. Mm-hmm. And so I got into the tradition of every Saturday in the morning, because she'd leave to her friend's house really early because her friend would come and pick her up. Yeah. And so by the time I woke up, she was already gone. So I made a tradition of I'd wake up and go and have a nice meal or something. There's a place down the road from us that has really good breakfast, and actually they have really good all around food. But our breakfast is amazing. Yeah. So yeah, just every Saturday I'd wake up and I'd go and get a really nice breakfast, and then I'd text her saying, "Ha, I'm having delicious food." But yeah, she's out having fun and everything like that.
Yeah.
But she doesn't. They both have busy schedules now, so she doesn't do that anymore. So now we both go there.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, it's just when you're spending most of your day, most of your life with somebody, when you have those alone moments, it's not oh gosh, yes, I get to spend some time alone. It's more just well, I'm alone. I might as well just treat myself. I get otherwise I'm just going to sit here being by myself when I'm used to being around somebody else. So
sure.
it's it's not so much, oh great, now I get awesome, I get to do this thing because the wife is gone. It's no, it's I'm going to do this thing for myself because here I am by myself and I might as well treat myself. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of just it's this week is going to be different for me, so what the heck, I'll do something different.
Right. Yeah.
When I eat.
Yeah. It's an excuse. It's an occasion, or
Yeah.
You just all right, I'm gonna do this thing, and then you're hey, that I kind of liked that last time I did that happen, so I might as well do it again this time.
Yeah. So on the menu, this is going to be today. After we're done recording, I'm gonna start today. So I have it's a 1.7 pound choice New York strip steak.
Ooh.
So a huge steak. It's 2 inches thick.
Jeez.
It's really, really thick. And then I have a copycat recipe for Boston Market's macaroni and cheese because I really like that.
Uh-huh.
I have this, it's just a store-bought package of mashed potatoes, but it's really good. I've had it before. And then I'm going to make for Thanksgiving, one of our friends that came visit, she was actually on that little bonus episode we did. Her name is Haley. She made this Brussels sprout salad thing, and it was delicious. So I'm gonna make that too. So that's all of that is what I'm making for myself today.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, I think I remember a year or two ago you'd made us. I think you made Steve and I a steak and some mac and cheese or something like that.
Yeah, I think I did. Was that when we moved into the house and then you guys brought your computers over and we played Dark Souls?
I think it was around that. It was around that time.
Okay,
it was right around that time.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was really good.
Gotcha. Aside from making myself an expensive dinner, I just started my job. Just moved me over to the new location, and it's the The facility we're in is really, really nice. There's a whole lot of stuff that is much, much nicer than the previous building we were in.
Cool.
But so far this week, we've done pretty much nothing. The first couple days were just like orientation.
Sure, yeah.
And then after that, the supervisors had like this big speech to everybody that was all fire and brimstone. Like, if you do this, you'll get fired. If you do this, you'll get fired. If you do this, you'll get fired. You cannot do all this stuff that you're accustomed to doing, because they were really lax about security back at the old place. And so it made us think like, okay, we're going to all be really busy today. And then no, we basically just went to our break rooms and just sat around for 8 hours and then went home. Then came back the next day, sat around for 8 hours, then came back home. Meanwhile, the team leaders are like, yeah, don't worry about that. It's just like at the old place. You'll be fine. Just don't, just get your job done, and don't, the job that I was working before is not a job anymore.
Oh, no.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because it was literally like 6 or 7, or I guess 8 or 9 people all essentially doing one thing. And, it sucks that my job isn't a job anymore, but it was an antiquated job that shouldn't have existed for the last 30 years anyway.
Sure.
And it's not like I'm out of job. They can just put me on a different job.
Right, yeah, true.
Anyway, today we have our second drawing for the free Goblin Stone Adventure Chapel on the Cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
And the winner this week is Kim H.
Woo!
So congratulations, Kim H. You should be getting an email pretty soon with instructions on how to redeem that. So all we ask is that you, if you like it or you don't like it, just let Goblin Stone know. Let them know what you thought. Give them a little review. Mm-hmm. And so they can make better products in the future.
Yep. Feedback is always good, and, keeps things moving.
Yep. And so, Jeff, if they want to, if somebody wanted to enter this drawing, how would they do so?
We're going to do a drawing every week. So,
every episode.
Yep. So just give us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com, and in the subject line, just put Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yes.
That's all you got to do.
All right. Jeff, you want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, Gabe.
Yes.
You're traveling through a dungeon.
Ooh.
You've been making your way through this dungeon. You dodged a few traps. You found a few hidden passages.
Ooh.
And you found a little stairwell down. And as you go down the stairs, the stairs are getting less and less defined. It's kind of getting like the tunnel that you're going down is getting more and more rocky. And as you're getting deeper and deeper, you start hearing it's like, what the heck is that? It was like it's like deep breathing or something. So you tiptoe your way down this cavern, and as you get down, you see a little bit of light, and at the end of the cavern, you see a dragon.
Whoa!
But it's not sleeping. It doesn't really seem to notice you. It's just kind of leaning on a stone slab. And
does it look depressed?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's in a good place. Mm-hmm. So you'll go up to it, and you look around, and you see, like, it's got a few things strewn about. A few like there's like a sketchbook over there. You see, like, the dragon sketchbook. Of
course.
And then you see like a couple like little like a jigsaw puzzle, but like there's a few pieces put together. There's a few scattered about. I kind of gave up on that. There's an easel. With there's a little canvas. He's got some like a half done painting. Looks like something from maybe like Bob Ross.
Okay.
And so it dawns on you that this dragon doesn't seem to have anything to do, because the dragon's bored.
I thought that was going somewhere else. All right. Good job.
Thanks.
I thought it was going to be that his significant other was out of town, so he was bored. Anyway, okay. Good job, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right. So our item for today was submitted by Damien from Adventures in Aurelia.
Ooh, thank you.
So go check out Adventures in Aurelia, everybody. It's a fun actual play podcast. So this item is a wondrous item called the Dragon Scale Cloak. It's a fairly simple item, but I think it's cool. I think it's got some potential. This beautiful cloak is made from the hide and scales of a dragon. The look and feel of this cloak depends on the dragon whose hide it is made from. The cloak of a red dragon may feel warm to the touch. The cloak of a black may appear to be constantly cast in shadow.
Ooh.
Regardless of the hide this cloak is made out of, the inherent magic captured in the dragon's scales allows the wearer of this cloak to cast mage armor on themselves once per long rest. The cloak also grants resistance to the element that the dragon whose scales it was made from is immune to.
Cool.
So that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
pretty simple.
Pretty simple for, like as most like defensive dragon made items. It's, you just get a little resistance to an element based on the dragon. And then, heck, mage armor once per day, basically. Yeah.
That's pretty handy. And it makes it so that this is a good item for non-armor wearers. Because I know, like, in a lot of editions, dragon scale whatever would typically be for, like, a fighter or something like that. Like a dragon scale shield or dragon scale armor or something. Yeah. But this is explicitly for someone not wearing armor.
All right.
Or not wanting to benefit from armor. So
yeah, I see it as like like a caster who wants to free up a slot because like of course you're gonna want to take mage armor in most cases.
Sure.
But that's a slot that you have to dedicate to mage armor. So at least in this case, once per long rest, you can throw one on, so you're not using up a spell slot that otherwise could be used for something offensive.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and then who doesn't like the flavor of dragons?
Oh,
so,
I know.
Like,
that's really cool.
So, I mean, like, obviously, like, the red dragon be warm. Maybe, like, a white or a silver dragon could be cold.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just a little cool to the touch, which, wouldn't, I guess, depending on the DM, wouldn't really have, like, a huge, like, mechanical benefit. Like, maybe it's, like, if you're traveling through a warm environment and you're wearing the silver dragon one, like, you might stave off, like, exhaustion or something a little bit longer than everybody else, but not by a ton. Or like, let's say it's like a gold dragon cloak, and it would give you a mustache.
Yeah,
the little like whisker things that they got. It just give you a couple little whiskers.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the copper dragon cloak is constantly playing pranks on you.
Oh yeah, okay, that's
copper
true.
Dragons are really playful like that.
I thought it was gonna be like if you're wearing the copper dragon one, you keep finding like pennies everywhere.
Sure.
Or you just like pennies, or if you have copper pieces, they just like fall out of your pocket all the time. You're like, dang it.
Or they get stuck to your cloak and you don't realize it. I thought I had like 12 copper. What happened? Maybe the silver dragon, the cloak constantly looks like it's better than you.
Or the silver cloak would be like, like when bad things happen, there's sort of like a somewhat good thing that happens with it.
Okay,
like a silver lining.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I was actually, when I first read this, I was thinking like a black, or I guess maybe more like a green dragon scale cloak would just like smell kind of bad.
Oh, sure.
Like green dragons is all like the like poisonous gas.
Right, yeah, they live in like the swamps and stuff like that. Yeah.
So maybe it would like smell like
Forests
chlorine or something.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goo.
Yeah. So I think it's a fun little item. It does make me think of Steve's character in the Age of Worms campaign. Mm-hmm. Age of Worms thing. I don't know if I've used that one in a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in that campaign, you guys killed a black dragon, and then Steve took a bunch of its scales and made a magical shield out of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the items that he made
were intelligent,
and then they would like turn into something else. So like it would look like a shield, because it was like a floating shield. It was like an animated shield.
Yeah.
It would become an animated shield, but then it would turn into like a cat or something that would like follow him around.
Yeah, it was just like a little like house cat sort of thing, but like it had like very dragon-like features.
And I always pictured it as looking like it was made of a bunch of scales. Like someone took like a bunch of dragon scales and like sculpted them into a cat.
Yeah, I always pictured just like the scales kind of like when it turns into the shield, it kind of like the scales kind of like fly apart and then come together into a shield form or something like that. And then otherwise it's just a little kitty. He had the cat shield. He had his armor was once a golem.
It was.
And so,
yes.
and then like his armor, he made that intelligent. So his armor was also basically an intelligent item that was once a golem. So it was as if he was just like wearing the golem as a Iron Man suit sort of thing.
Yeah. And his axe was just, it was that was the first one that was intelligent.
Right, yeah.
And it loved to eat stuff. I don't remember if it had like a different type of creature's persona or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, eventually it did like eat like a dragon thing or something like that.
It ate all sorts of stuff.
Lots of gravy.
Yes. Anyway, so I think this is a fun item, and it's simple enough, but still really cool.
Yep, that's not gonna be overpowered, but it's some nice flavor, and like you said, like where dragon scales are usually like, you get dragon scale armor for your fighter. Here's something dragon scale for like a caster or or a monk or something.
I never played it, but there was a D&D video game called Dragonstone, I think. I remember I watched Jay play it, and there was like one of the big bosses in the game, not the last boss, but like near the end, there's a big boss that's a big red dragon. And then after you kill it, in the next level, you can give your fighter character red dragon armor.
Nice.
And I always thought that was a nice touch. All right, I think that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard. If anybody wanted to submit items for us to discuss, questions for us to discuss, or funeral pyre stories for us to discuss, how would they do so?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
All right, and before we go any further, I want to announce we have a couple more patrons have donated to our Patreon, so we want to give each of them a thank you right now. So first, we want to thank Crit Academy for pledging. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. And then we also like to thank Giuseppe, which is an awesome name.
Yes.
But we have to thank them for donating.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you to both of you. And that'll provide a nice segue into the next section. Before we talk about questions, I want to tell everybody to go ahead and check out critacademy.com.
Yeah.
It is another podcast here on the Crit Nation Fellowship. And if you check them out, they've got great content every episode for players and DMs. Mm-hmm. They've got like a player tip, they've got a DM tip, they've got an encounter idea, a character idea, a magic item idea, and a monster idea. So lots of cool stuff from them. Also go and check out D&D Character Lab. It's another podcast on the Crit Nation Fellowship. They're a great podcast, Garen and Dan. They make characters and then, pit them up against each other and see which is better.
Yes.
You want to get into some questions?
Sure.
Cool.
Our first question comes from Typhon58 on Enworld, and they ask, where should I draw the line between rule of cool and rules as written?
Yeah, this is something that I think this is going to be largely opinion-based. So,
Sure.
I'll like we usually do, I think I'll try to give differing viewpoints. But I guess let me give a little bit of background. The person that sent this in, Typhon58, they gave there's a little bit of backstory to this question. Mm-hmm. Basically, they were saying that they joined a group where the DM is really it really works hard to make all of the players really powerful.
Sure.
And so like all the players, their AC is really high. They all have like special abilities and stuff. And then because their AC is really high and they're really hard to kill, the DM throws more powerful monsters at them.
Yeah.
And then the more powerful monsters eventually lead to players getting killed. But then when players die, the DM doesn't want them to be dead. He wants them to be, having a great time. So he like gave them a ring of true resurrection once per day. So,
okay.
So it's just like it's a big pile of stuff that if you're on board with it is going to sound awesome. Mm-hmm. And if you're not on board with it is going to be like, why are we even playing this game?
Right.
So there's kind of a lot here. And I would say I fall fairly strongly on one side of this. But, when you're playing the game, I guess the important thing is that everybody's having a good time. Definitely. Mm-hmm. If everybody is having fun, the game is going well. But the thing is, if anybody is having a bad time, really for whatever reason, if anybody's having a bad time, something went wrong, and everybody should be working to fix that.
Right.
Of course, some people are going to take things too far, and some people are going to get upset over things that they really shouldn't be. But if one person is upset for whatever reason, there's some sort of a clash going on. Mm-hmm. So if a DM wants to run a game where he wants the players to feel awesome 100% of the time, that's fine. Like if the players are on board with it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But any story, any movie, any video game, anything has to have different levels, or it's eventually going to all seem it's going to lose its appeal.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you're playing a game and every single moment of the game you are on the edge of your seat, using all of your attention to try and, dodge whatever, to jump around, flip around, whatever. That's going to seem really cool at first.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the game has to give you a little bit of downtime.
Sure.
Or similarly, let's say a game is really, really difficult. If it is always really, really difficult, that's a problem. But if it's always really, really easy, that's a problem too.
Yeah.
You got to have times where the game ramps up the difficulty.
Yep.
But then after it's ramped up the difficulty, it's got to pull back a little bit, let you feel really cool for a little bit before it becomes really difficult again. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of like, not necessarily game design 101, but like that's something that all kinds of media need to realize, is that you got to vary up the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess like if you're in a game, if you're running a game and you want the players to feel really cool, that's fine, but don't make it so they always feel really cool.
Right.
If you try to make them feel really cool and then it sort of begins to backfire, and then you try to compensate and then the players don't feel cool anymore, maybe let them not feel cool for a little bit.
Right.
Maybe let them get beat down and then make them, let them build their way back up.
Right, yeah. Like the one of the cooler feelings in playing games is when you, like, after getting beat by something, you come back and are able to overcome it. Like, that's when you feel the coolest, is when, like, okay, this thing I know is hard because it killed me the last time.
Right.
And then I come back and beat it, and it was kind of easy. I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, like, when I tried to play Dark Souls for the first time,
that's where my mind went too.
I think it was the Taurus demon, and it's just like I can't beat this guy.
Yeah.
And I just
feels impossible.
I gave up. I want to say for like 3 months, and then like I came back and tried a few more times and eventually got it. Now I will say, the first time I killed it was sort of an accident.
Did it fall off the bridge?
It fell off the bridge, but I survived long enough for it to fall off the bridge.
There
and
you go.
Like, all right, and then it gave me that like I feel cool boost, and it gave me the momentum to keep going through the game.
Yeah. It's that series gets a lot of criticism for being like really, really hard. You know, I've got opinions about that, but that's for a different discussion for a different day. But the best feeling in the world is when you go through the game and it's really hard. Maybe you just barely get through, and then a little while later you play it again. You start over, and you get through with no difficulty whatsoever, or just at the very least, like you know exactly how to do it. You can see how well you've progressed since then. That's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, a lot of games do that where, you like the first boss you fight is like, oh gosh, this is so tough. And then like later on in the game, like towards the end of the game, you'll fight that same boss again, but as like a mini boss.
Yeah.
And like sometimes they'll even add a few things, like more things to that fight. And like, so it's like, okay, but you're able to deal with it a lot better because you're more equipped for it, with equipment from the game, and you just know how to deal with it better. So, but it's like, it's sort of a way for the game to show you, look how far you've come, because here's this guy that you struggled with at the beginning, but now at the end, this is just another guy. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I've dealt with this before. I can handle this.
Right.
So like, yeah, if you're like, oh, I can handle this all the time, then that's a problem. But I mean, I guess in their situation with the ring, it's more just like there's less consequence. Like
I think the ring itself is just kind of like that is a side effect of the type of approach that the DM. I'll get to that a little more on that later, but that's just a side effect of how the DM is approaching balancing the game. It's like, well, I'm trying to do one thing that didn't work, so I got to go way on the other side and do this thing. Oh, that didn't work, so I got to go way on the other side and do this thing. So, like another part of this question, I with the question, I kind of there was a lot to it, and then I kind of trimmed it down to be this question. But another part of it was like, what should I do when the DM has a completely different view on game balance than I do. So there's a lot to this question, a lot to this scenario. That's kind of a bunch of questions all in one. But a lot of people are going to have different opinions about this. When I play the game, and when I play the game and when I run the game, I prefer the game to stick to the rules as much as possible. Of course, I understand there are times when the rules just don't fit the situation.
Right.
There's times when when what you want to do doesn't work in the rules, so you got to make up something new, or even just you don't like the rule, so you got to make a new one. Yeah. That's fine. I'm 100% for that. I understand there are times when that happens. That being said, there's the expression rules are made to be broken.
Right.
I hate that expression. I think a much better expression is the rules are made to be followed until you have a good reason to break them.
Sure.
If you have a good reason to break a rule, if you have a good reason to make up a new rule, by all means do it. But if your first approach when you look at a rule is, oh, I'm just going to make a new one.
Yeah.
No. Like, then why are you playing the game if you're not going to at least try to make the best of the rules that are there?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So when I'm running a game, I try to stick to the rules. There are times when I will, depending on how new the players are or just how lighthearted of a tone I'm going for, sometimes I will completely toss the rules out the window. But when I do, it's not just because, I don't like that. It's because I want something specific, and this rule isn't going to let me do that.
Yeah, I think it's not. They're not obviously not as catchy of a saying, and so it's like instead of like rules are meant to be broken, it's like follow rules until they break, and then make a new rule.
I suppose
it's like like if that rule doesn't work and it breaks, and like if that rule gets broken, then you have to find a new rule to fill that void, I guess.
Yeah.
So like just so it's just so if a rule just doesn't work for what you're doing, then you got to find something else that works instead.
Yeah.
And if what you're doing is trying to have a really cool time, then you might need to kind of bend the rules a little bit and and make the game a little bit more exciting or more powerful or whatever.
Sure.
This kind of reminds me of we've definitely done something similar where we make ourselves pretty powerful, and it's usually in the case that we have a smaller group that we normally play with, so we kind of have to balance it out. But in those cases, sometimes bumping up the power of the monsters and stuff we fight is a way to deal with that, to kind of balance it out. But it's also this is also kind of dealing with the whole power creep thing with with the splat books and everything, because it's you want your players to be able to use all these cool things that are in the books and everything like that. So, but in a lot of cases, it's going to make them really powerful. So you have to use those books and other things to make the adventure a little bit more difficult to match. So I don't know. I feel like the rule of cool is basically just letting your players do what they want and be the super powerful things that they want to be, and then just kind of adjusting to it.
Yeah, for anybody who's not familiar with rule of cool is when something doesn't make sense in the rules, but you do it anyway because it's cool.
Right.
And I can totally get behind that. I have no problem with the idea of the rule of cool whatsoever. If I ever come off as that much of a curmudgeon, I do not mean to. But yeah, like you were saying, in 3.5, we would have campaigns where our characters were so powerful.
Yeah.
But that was number one, because we knew the game very, very well. If I was running a game where the players were really powerful, I knew how to adjust for it in a way that wouldn't lead to them getting killed all the time.
Right.
And that did not come easily. That came after years of playing the game.
Sure.
That was number one. And number two, 3.5 was a lot harder to break in a bad way. You could there were all sorts of things that let you break the game in a good way, but the numbers were so high no matter what you did that it was really hard for the players to get so powerful that you had to use, unbalanced monsters in order to combat them.
Yeah.
5th edition, I guess I don't actually know for a fact that this person is in 5th edition, but going by the context, I think they are. In 5th edition, it's very easy to break the game in a bad way because the game was designed with certain things in mind. AC, for example, which was one thing that was specifically called out by Typhon 58, AC is meant to be very low in 5th edition. It's even possible to have a first level character with a really high AC, but you have to, like, if you get that quote unquote really high AC, like that's as high as it's going to get ever, pretty much. And there are still ways to combat that even at low levels.
Right. And like, yeah, if you basically make your character around the AC, like that's going to be all there is to that character.
Pretty much.
And there's not going to be much room for improvement on the AC, at least for a very long time. So like if your only trick as your character is that you have a very high AC, there's not much else to you.
Yeah.
But even with the high AC, there's like in 5th edition, like a high AC is only so high.
Yeah.
And you're still going to get hit. Like it's still going to happen. So like if that's all your character can do is just have a high AC, it's not going to do very well.
Right. So when we talk about how we played a 3rd edition campaign where our characters were really powerful, like that is different because number one, we had a lot of experience with making that not a problem, and number two, it was harder to make it a problem to begin with.
Sure.
So in 5th edition, it is a lot easier for that to become a problem. So in general, 5th edition isn't meant to have problems like that. So if you do let your players all have really high ACs, and they were talking like the bard had a really high AC, the wizard had a really high AC, and so if the entire group is all really, really powerful in that regard, the game is kind of gonna suffer a bit because of it. So if you aren't equipped to break a rule, if you don't have a good reason to break a rule and you don't know the repercussions of breaking that rule, I would say you probably shouldn't break that rule, even if you might think that it's going to make the game more fun. Now, when I'm playing a game, if I don't feel like there is a challenge, I'm not going to have fun. I don't play D&D so that I'm always going to win. I mean, like, I hope I'm always going to win.
Right.
But if I don't feel like there's a chance I'm going to fail, then all enjoyment in the game goes away. That's one of the reasons why I hate it when people cheat in D&D, because it makes me feel like there is no longer any stakes.
Sure.
And therefore, the game is not fun.
Yeah.
You know where there are going to be stakes, though. I'm pointing in my stomach. Sorry.
Gabe's got food on the brain.
Yes, I do. So not having any stakes is a problem. Not feeling like there is a challenge is a problem.
Yeah. And
the way that you maintain a challenge is by keeping the game balanced. If the game isn't balanced, even if it's like one character is really, really powerful, that is very likely to make the game less fun for other players.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if the players think, like, playing a game where I'm always winning, that feels really fun at first. I want to say there's a Twilight Zone where there's this guy who is like a gambler or something. And he gets hit by a truck. And then like he wakes up and he's in a casino. And then he's like, oh man. And then he goes and he rolls the dice and he wins. And he's like, yes, I'm in heaven. And he keeps rolling the dice. And every time he keeps winning. And then he realizes, I'm not in heaven. I'm in hell.
Right.
Because that is this thing that he lived for is no longer giving him enjoyment because there is no stakes anymore. There's no chance of failure.
Yeah, every slot is a jackpot.
Exactly.
And all that. Yeah, where it's just like everything you win every time.
Right.
But yeah, like, you know, at first it's like, man, I'm great at this. But, you know, like anybody who's like develops a skill or something, like they're always looking for like a new challenge and everything. You don't, like, you want to strive to be the best, but like being the best is probably the worst thing that can happen because then you have nothing to strive for anymore. Yeah. And I mean, like, the human brain kind of counteracts that. I mean, like, a lot of times like when like you get that high of like doing something good or whatever like that, and then you immediately get the drop. You immediately drop back down. You're like, oh, okay, well, I did that thing. Great. Where's the next thing? Like, I got to find the next thing. Yeah. So like your brain kind of messes with you in that way that like, so like And that's part of it is like when you have these like really strong characters and it's like, yeah, this is really cool, but then like, yeah, you just start like there is a drop off in excitement as to like, how powerful your character is. And so like the only way to deal with that is make your character even more powerful.
Exactly.
And then you just kind of get way out of control at that point. And there's only so high a number can go before you're like, all right, it's just a number. Like,
right. Yeah. I remember a long time ago, someone showed me, this was in 3rd edition, somebody somebody had statted out Lavos from Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
And it was basically just they took a Tarrasque and then they just increased they literally like multiply. Yeah, they just added zeros to all the attacks. And they were like, oh man, isn't this so cool? And at first I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I was like, oh wait, no, it isn't. It's just, you just kept increasing the numbers.
Yeah, it just made the number bigger. Like the adding zeros to the numbers doesn't change the flavor of the monster. It just makes it okay. It's just going to take 30 turns to kill rather than 20.
Right. And I wouldn't look at a monster like that and be like, oh man, this is going to be an intense fight. It's going to be, oh, okay, unless we are also adding zeros to our numbers, we're just going to die.
Yeah.
There is no overcoming that. And then once we have those numbers, once we have all those zeros too, well, then I guess it's just a fight. And it's like, well, let's just get rid of the zeros. Anyway, so it may feel like the game is fun. And if it feels like the game is fun, don't let me ever tell you that it shouldn't be fun.
Right.
If you're enjoying the game, that's fine. I nor nobody else has any place to tell you how you should or should not enjoy your game. Like, just everybody think about that for a moment. Nobody, including me, can tell you shouldn't be having fun. Nobody can tell you that what you're doing, that you are finding fun, shouldn't be fun. We can't say that. If it ever seems like I'm saying that, I don't mean to be saying that. But if something feels fun now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel fun next week. And if you are having your fun this week by setting up a bunch of stuff that is going to make things harder to balance, then next week when it is less fun, and now you're having to deal with all those issues balancing everything, it's not going to be so fun. You're going to wish that you hadn't done all of those things in the first place.
Yeah. So
try and think ahead. Is this going to be fun after we've been doing it for a little while? Maybe not. But just, try and look ahead. I would just say, like, unless you have enough experience with the game to know your own likes and dislikes, to know whether this will be a problem for you in the future, I would say try not to make any big changes. Try not to make the party super powerful until you know that you as a DM or you as a player or whatever can deal with that on a long-term basis. Or just make sure that you have an escape plan in mind.
Right, yeah.
Maybe just have a little talk with the group and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and run this really powerful game. If in a few weeks it's not very fun, maybe let's, dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, that's not a very exciting conversation to have, but
yeah. I remember with the Lich Queen's Beloved, where we were basically making
epic level characters.
Characters. Well, I think we started at level 18 or something like that. But it got into epic levels for sure. The most fun I had of that was just creating the character.
Yeah.
And then some of the battles were pretty cool and epic, but I definitely had the most fun building this really powerful character and this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then when I got to it, we were fighting equally powerful things, and it was just oh man, I don't know, this is just brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, power is fun in on paper.
Yeah.
Having powerful characters and having all these abilities and stuff is always fun on paper, but then you throw it against something that's balanced for it, and it's either just it takes forever, or something can just be over too quick. It's just you are just so powerful that even putting it up against something that's equally powerful, that thing just had a weakness against the other thing,
right?
Because a lot of times when you're building really powerful stuff in D&D, you're typically min-maxing,
right?
And so you're sacrificing one thing to make another thing really strong. So it's I'm not going to be using ranged weapons. So what do I need a dex for? What do I need a good dex?
Sure.
Dex for? But then you come across something that makes you do a dex save, and you're oh crap! I spent all this work building this character that's supposed to be really strong, and he died because he couldn't make his deck save.
Right.
And that's yeah. I don't know.
I have a bit of experience with DMs who, they kind of like are constantly rubber banding between making things too difficult or too easy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In, I think it was like episode 18 or something like that, I talked about the worst DM I ever played with.
Oh yeah.
And in that campaign, I would say that is very similar to this. Not necessarily that he made us feel powerful, but it was that he really wanted to have a large group, but then because he wanted to have a large group, he had to have really powerful monsters. But then because the monsters were killing us, he would say, oh, you guys you've got like 8 people in your group. You should be having no problem with these monsters. And it's like, there's only 4 players here and you gave us a bunch of NPCs and we're playing with characters of people who aren't even here. That's why we have so many people. The game is just, game doesn't work as well. It can work, but it doesn't work as well as easily if you have a really big group or a really powerful thing. You should try to do what 5th edition was designed to do, and that is to keep things relatively small.
Yeah.
Now, 5th edition, I think the suggested party size is like 5 or 6 or something. But again, those numbers are meant to be low. So if you are going to facilitate making those numbers really high, higher than the game necessarily is designed for them to be, you have to know that you are able to deal with that. And if you make your players really powerful, and then you realize, oh, I can only challenge them if I put in really powerful monsters, and then the monsters ends up killing them too quickly.
Yeah.
Well, maybe instead of giving another Band-Aid on that gaping wound, maybe you should go back and say, hang on, let's stitch this up and let's start from the beginning and let's try and make this better.
Sure.
Now, in the example with my worst DM, I would say that DM probably thought he was having a lot of fun. Like, in his mind, he probably was enjoying that.
Right.
It was probably all rule of cool to him. In his mind, he was probably seeing it all as, I'm going to make this really, this group have a really awesome group of adventurers.
Yeah.
They're all going to have a great time fighting these horrific monsters. But in the end, it was a problem. Even if it wasn't necessarily a problem at the beginning, it became a problem. And he wasn't well equipped, regardless of how many years he had been playing the game. He was not well equipped to deal with that problem in a manner that didn't cause more problems. Mm-hmm. And that's something, hey, all of us run into situations like that.
Yeah.
I've run into situations like that. So you have to try and learn from the problems that you run into. Even if you have to completely scrap a campaign because of it, at least you'll know not to make that mistake again in the future.
Yeah.
So, everybody's going to have a different opinion on whether you should follow the rules as written or whether you should sacrifice the rules for rule of cool.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose is fine, but you got to know what's going to work for you. You got to know what's going to work for your group, and you got to know how to fix a problem if it becomes a problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Going back on a rule change and stuff like that is really tough.
It is tough, but unless you want the game to get worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you have to.
That's why it's tough, because it's much easier to make a new rule to fix the one that you changed before, and then you make a new rule to fix that one. It's like, so like, it's easier to do that than it is to, just say like, hey, all right, that change we made at the beginning, let's go back on that because that's just not working.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to, like, I don't know. You don't want to nobody wants to backtrack. And especially when it comes to like giving your players power, like, you give them this cool thing and they're like, sweet, cool thing. And then you're like, you know what? Never mind. Let me take that back. And I don't know, like,
yeah,
it's the whole, like, you give them a magic item. Oh, that magic item's too strong. Well, it gets stolen in the night. It's like, oh, okay, great.
Right.
Thanks for that. Fun. I don't know. You want them to struggle.
Yeah.
So that when they overcome that struggle, it becomes a good thing. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of confusing this with like this. Like, just confusing this with just like power creep and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a related issue.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and like the rule of cool isn't always exactly gonna be that, but
right. You could even kind of think of power creep as being the writers of the books are like, hey, this would be awesome.
Yeah,
let's rule of cool this ability.
Sure.
But they don't necessarily think about the long-term repercussions of this this ruling of cool,
Gotcha.
I guess. And so, that's something like, especially if you're creating a product, there's maybe an incentive to we talked about it. There's an incentive to come out with something that is really cool. But if you want your product to be long-lived, if you want your campaign to be long-lived, maybe throwing out rules of cool here and there aren't necessarily going to be good in the long run.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to keep having to one-up yourself.
Sure, yeah.
This is sort of related. There's a book series that I really like. It's called the Percy Jackson series, written by Rick Riordan.
Sure.
And it's a series of books. It's very much Harry Potter, but Greek myth instead of magic.
Yeah.
Very, very, very much. The two series are so similar. It's written for a relatively young audience, but it's well enough written that, I'm an adult. I'm 32 years old, and I still enjoy reading these books. The first, there's like 5 books in the series, deals with, oh no, if they don't stop this bad guy, he's going to destroy the world or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Standard fare in like a young adult fantasy, whatever.
Right. It's not the same section, but it's near the section in Barnes & Noble of teen paranormal romance.
Yes. But then, so there's this one series of 5 books, and then that series ended, and then the writer went on to write another series that takes place in the same universes, in the same universe, involves some of the same characters. But the problem with that is, well, okay, the last series was about if they don't stop the bad guy, he's going to destroy the world. So I guess if they don't stop the bad guy this time, he's going to destroy the universe? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not really what the conflict of the second series is, but it takes everything, all of the stakes from the first series, and they're like, well, we got to make this more intense. It can't be that he starts off small and then gets bigger. But he has to start off big and then get even bigger and then even bigger and even bigger.
Yeah, I think in a lot of those cases, like that, where like the second in a series or something like that, when the main character starts off where they left off in the first one, where they're usually like they've come into some power or something like that.
Yeah.
In the second installment, it's like, well, we can't have that. Take away the power.
And that actually happens
right.
very, very much. I might have even mentioned this on the podcast before. I don't know. But in the first series, I won't give any spoilers, but one of the characters, the main character, gets an ability that makes him virtually unkillable. He's virtually invincible.
Yeah.
And then in the last book. And then at the end of the book, when I found out they were coming out with another series that he was going to play a part in, I was like, that is so awesome. I want to know how they're going to make the story interesting if one of the main characters is invincible.
Yeah.
And then the way they did that is the first time he's introduced in the second series, he lost that ability.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
It's a real buzzkill when that happens. You're just like, man, like, because you want them to have that power because it's really cool, and you want to see what they can do with it to make it still. It's like how, like, it's like, okay, they can't be killed, but that doesn't mean they can't be like trapped.
Yeah.
Or something like
definitely.
that. Like when in my childish brain, when I'm thinking like, if I had 3 wishes, like it's like if I had 3 wishes, or it was like what if I wished for immortality? And then you got to think of like, okay, what would come with that? It's like, all right, just because I'm immortal doesn't mean I can just walk around and do anything I want.
Yeah.
Because throw me in jail. Okay, crap, I'm in jail.
Right.
And then I'm just there until the walls rot. Like it's like, and then I can get out once everyone around me is dead, and I can just, and then like, oh, okay, everyone who around me has died, so I can't get out because no one's here to let me out. So now I just have to sit here and wait until the stone crumbles.
Yeah. I feel like I read a short story a long time ago about a guy who became immortal, and it eventually, the world has been absorbed by the sun millions of years in the future. Now I'm just floating out in space.
Yeah.
Well, look at my non-existent watch. I guess I'm just going to float out here for eternity.
Right, yeah. It's like, I mean, like, in that case, it's like, well, wait, how did he get away from the sun? I don't know.
I don't remember the details.
Right, yeah. It's like,
the sun eventually collapsed on itself, and now
he's just like, I was like, well, now I'm inside the sun. I can't die.
Yeah. It really hurts, though.
It's hurt. Yeah, it burns. And a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
In fact, Tylenol. Oh, there's no more Tylenol anymore. I could use a drink. Nope, no more drinks anymore.
Yeah.
Well.
And I don't want to. So I was just saying that, like, I think that it was lame that they took away this powerful ability that one of the characters had.
Yeah.
I want to just cut this off and say that I'm saying this is different than giving a player a powerful ability and then taking that away.
Yeah.
That's fine because the player himself has agency. The DM is not in 100% control of what the player does with that ability. In a book, if one of the characters is given a super powerful ability, the writer is in control of that. The writer is very much able to find ways to make that still an issue. Mm-hmm. That's different. I don't know if anybody was listening to this, and I pride myself on being consistent in my logic.
Sure,
I pride myself on acknowledging when there is an inconsistency. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that I mean those as two different things, two different situations.
I may sound wrong, but let me tell you that I'm not. No.
Well, I mean, you can disagree with me. I just want to say that it makes sense in my head, and here's why I think it makes sense in my head. Right. If you disagree with that, fine. But, I don't ever want someone to call me a hypocrite without me having called myself a hypocrite first.
Right, yeah.
So, let me ask you, Jeff.
Right.
If you're in a group and the DM is using Rule of Cool too much or too little, at what point do you bring it up to the DM? Or do you bring it up to the DM? Do you just live with it, or do you maybe just quit?
I don't know,
because that's kind of another issue that Typhon 58 brought up in the description of the issue.
Sure. I don't know. I personally avoid confrontation, so I'd probably either just put up with it or just stop showing up to the sessions.
Yeah.
If it became a problem, if it wasn't something I could just put up with, if I absolutely could not put up with it, but I'll put up with a lot to be playing D&D with friends.
Sure.
Especially if it was you that was going overboard with it, I'd probably just put up with it and just be like, all right, we'll do this, and we'll play another campaign later on, and then mm-hmm. and then when the next campaign starts, we'll be like, hey, let's not do that again or something.
Okay.
So I personally wouldn't bring it up till the next campaign.
I see.
But that's just me. I mean, but if you have a problem with it to the point where it is just no longer fun,
yeah,
bring it up at that point. Just bring it up. Be but don't let it simmer for too long.
Yeah.
Don't wait too long. Ask yourself, is this a problem? And if you can at least, somewhat answer yourself and be like, yeah, I don't think I like this, then maybe bring it up then. And we've talked about before, you don't need to bring it up at the table.
Right.
Send the DM an email.
Sure.
That's, that's this very passive thing to do, but don't be passive aggressive and be like, man, you shouldn't be doing this, or just be like, hey, this is something that's come to my attention. It's not it's not quite as fun doing it this way. What do you think about going back on this rule or that rule or whatever? Mm-hmm. I don't know, but
yeah. With me, I think I would act similarly. I would be more likely to just quietly leave the campaign than to say anything. And the reason being is that if the DM is running this way, that's probably the way, that's just the type of game that DM wants to run.
Right.
And like I said earlier, I'm in no place to tell that DM that their way of wanting to play the game is wrong. So I would probably view that as just a difference in expectations. He wants a type of game, I want a different type of game. And so I would, unless I was really enjoying the campaign, except for this little issue, I would probably just bow out. If I really, really liked where the campaign was going, except there's just too much of this.
Right.
Like you said, I would probably try to contact the DM after the session, send him an email saying, hey, no offense, I hope this doesn't come off as like a huge problem, but
right, yeah, not trying to be like a rules lawyer.
Exactly. But yeah, the game is less fun for me when this happens and this happens.
Yeah,
and so on.
Sure.
So I would try to word it as much as possible as, this is the type of game that I want. So is there a way that we can try and compromise? And I think it would also depend on whether I got the feel of whether other players had issue with that too.
Yeah. If you're unlike me and don't mind bringing stuff up like that. Be the, I mean, don't necessarily speak for others, but keep others in mind when you do talk to the DM. It's like if you do notice that maybe this person doesn't seem like they're having quite a good time, as good of a time as anybody else is. Like, maybe, I don't know, don't bring them up by name, I guess. I don't know. Like, you don't want to create conflict.
What type of conflict, Jeff? I guess it's not inter-party conflict, but it's more intergroup
conflict, right? Yeah. Ding. But try to bring that up to the DM that, like, hey, it doesn't seem like everybody's doing well with this. Maybe we should change back or whatever.
Yeah. And whether what I did was completely justified or not, but like when I dealt with my worst DM, I didn't deal with it by talking to him because I wasn't, that was the type of game he wanted. Yeah. I wanted a different game. I bore him no ill will at the time. But one of the other players who had been very vocal about being unhappy with the way that the DM was running things, I contacted him and said, hey, if I start my own group, would you like to join me?
Right.
And he said emphatically, yes, I would.
Yeah.
And then it was the DM's actions after that point,
right, that
really caused the issues.
Yeah.
So, so a different thing there, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, the line between rule of cool and rules as written, it's really going to vary for everybody, but I recommend that you stick to the rules as written as much as possible until you are really well equipped to deal with them. And I mean, heck, you're probably not going to become well equipped to deal with them until you break some rules just because. So if you have to break some rules, go ahead and do it, but be prepared for what is probably going to happen. If people get unhappy about it, be prepared for that. And if one of your players does approach you saying, hey, I wish we would stick more to the rules, don't take offense to it. Don't act like my game or the highway. Right. You're all there to have a good time. That as a DM, I don't have a good time unless everybody else is having a good time.
Sure.
Not all DMs are like that, but you're all putting in your time and your time, you're setting aside time to come and show up to the game. So try and compromise as much as possible. Try and figure out how everybody can have a good time.
Right.
Hopefully we're all friends, and hopefully we can all have fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for the question today.
Okay.
So now I want us to let's take a deep breath. I think that was a yawn coming from Jeff over there.
Yep. Just kind of stretch.
Okay. Well, while you're stretching, stretch over there and grab another log, and let's toss it on the funeral pyre.
Chucked it at it.
All right. So our funeral pyre story for today comes from David via Facebook. This is we've had a lot of short ones. I put a question on Facebook a while back, and a bunch of people gave some pretty good, pretty concise funeral pyre stories. This one is: doppelganger shifted to look like me. I crit failed an attack and hit a party member. Party assumed I was the bad one.
Oh no!
And now, Jeff, you had an experience playing as a doppelganger. Is that correct?
Well, right, yeah. You had my character captured or something, and then a doppelganger put in his place, and just you.
I approached you beforehand and said, "Hey, would you be okay with me replacing your character with a doppelganger for a couple sessions?"
Yeah. That was a pretty good time. Yeah.
So anyway, let us raise a glass in memory of this doppelganger's doppelganger.
Right. Huh.
Clink.
Wait, was that the doppelganger?
Maybe I'm the doppelganger, Jeff.
Ah.
Well, I think that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a Patreon now at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. We've got some good rewards on there, so go and check them out. If you can spare $1 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month, you can get some rewards for those, and anything you give us would go towards making the show better.
Yes.
Jeff, you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games.
Yes. We do have our survey at bit.ly/InterPartyConflict. If you take the short survey, just asks you about what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show. And then if you take that short survey, it takes just a couple minutes, you'll get 2 free board games courtesy of Tom and Mary at hollandspiel.com. Yes. Also, as we mentioned earlier, we do have a free giveaway for an adventure from Goblinstone, Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yeah.
So if you want to enter that, just send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Chapel on the Cliffs in the subject line.
Yep.
And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
remember to